Hello, it's JJ Humphrey, and we are on Elephant in the Room. I actually have two guests today. So I've got Teresa and Rosario, and so both these ladies are very involved with Page Six, which is a social media report that goes out quite often telling us about abuses across our state. They have been super advocates for cases in DHS and abuse on children. And so, again, we're just excited to have them. Let me see, I'm having to go off my phone.
Am I going to?
Having a lot of technical problems today, guys, and so y'all's just going to have to bear with us. But what we want to talk about today is the fact that we got two big bills that these ladies have been working on. Again, they're advocates for child abuse cases, DHS abuse. They have both been very active. I've worked with them, probably last 4 years or so, I'd say 3 to 4 years, working on lots and lots of cases. But y'all got a case right now on cameras in the courtroom. So who would like to take that and explain what that is?
Well, basically, with the cameras in the courtroom, what we're facing right now in Oklahoma is a significant court reporter shortage. And so a lot of cases are being delayed. A lot of people aren't able to get the official record. So what we're trying to do is modernize the cameras or the transcript industry. Right now, in order to get your transcripts, it's quite difficult. You would think you could just submit an open records request and you'd be able to get that, but it doesn't work that way in Oklahoma. The court reporters actually consider the transcripts their intellectual property, so a lot of these transcripts have to be purchased directly from these court reporters. Chico and I, we were talking about this prior to, because she's had, besides her own case, she's heard multiple cases where, getting transcripts isn't quite as easy as you would think. So I'll let Chico chime in and kind of tell you a little bit about that.
Yes. So what we're experiencing, I've personally experienced it, but also just across the board, there's so many litigants and people in the court system that have experienced it. But basically, at least in Tulsa County, there's not a centralized way to be able to get your court transcripts. So if you have a court reporter that retires, it is up to you to figure out connecting with that court reporter. I had a court reporter that was in a car accident, and the judge had done a court order that a motion had to be due by X amount of time. And so whenever my lawyer's assistant goes to the court administrator, they're just told that they are on medical leave and no remedy for it, right? So in the meantime, there's nobody to be able to type up that transcript or find that transcript. And then well after the due date, the court reporter finally responds after I keep trying to connect. And she says that she's been in a car accident, she's on medical leave. and was able to get me the transcript, but well over the deadline of what the judge ordered. And so, but this court transcript was already transcribed. So had it not been, would that have taken longer? Because I think she had shoulder surgery or something. I can't remember exactly, but we have situations in appeals where, right now people are asking about the cost. What could this cost regarding cameras in the courtroom and storage? And we're so worried about, storage and hearing concerns about storage. But the reality is right now, the storage are the court reporters. Whenever you have a hearing, it is the court reporters who take that evidence. And if the court reporters don't keep track of that evidence, get in a car accident, God forbid, something fatal happens, you're going to lose your transcript and you're going to lose that evidence. And I know that because I filed an appeal in my guardianship. And whenever the court clerk got back with me and said, your evidence is missing from the court transcript. And then I contact the court reporter who did that transcript, and she says, the judge took the evidence home. I don't know where the evidence is. So then I have to modify my appeal to not lose my appeal entirely to exclude the evidence. Now we're talking, this is evidence of child bruises, child abuse, maltreatment while in the care of grandma, neglect. And so now I don't have a Supreme Court that's going to be able to look at that. And so, it's very disheartening. We really, we're not looking to replace court reporters. We just want to make sure that there is a record, because a record is all that we can rely on for appeals, to win your cases, for your due process. But right now, the system of court reporters doesn't work. I've had where they retire, and thankfully, a court reporter told me, well, one reporter can sign for the other reporter. Do you want me to get a hold of that court reporter and see if she'll let me sign for my appeal so that I can use that transcript? You can have the transcript all you want, but if you don't have the signature of the court reporter to submit that transcript to the Supreme Court, then you can't use that transcript. And so there's just not a centralized way to do things now. I believe that this should be handled through, if you have a court administrator, then what's the purpose of a court administrator than to, if you have a court reporter, submit that recording, turn it into a centralized office, and have any reporter be able to at any time be able to transcribe something, because right now it stays with the court reporter. And if something happens to that court reporter, you're going to have delays. You're going to have missing transcripts, never get a transcript. We have parents who have waited a really long time to get transcripts. I know I've waited 2 to 3 years to be able to get a transcript, and that should not be happening. I've had a court reporter try to get in the way of me getting transcripts, telling me that she's never had a pro se, someone that represents themselves, be able to obtain a guardianship transcript. And I said, well, here I am. I need the transcript. And there is no law that you can state to me as to why you won't give me that transcript. And so I've had a court reporter want to give me back my money because she didn't want to transcribe a transcript. She said she couldn't because it was an in-camera hearing, which is in the judge's chamber, which was the start of a disqualification. There's no authority, there's no law, there's no statute to not give a litigant transcripts. And so I told her, keep the money. I'm going to get my transcript somehow. And so I've had to have other judges order transcripts, but it's a system that's really not well put together now. And so we're hoping that cameras in the courtroom will alleviate that. And oftentimes, with one transcript, just to give you an example, I didn't really need the transcript. I didn't really need it to appeal or word for word. I just needed to clarify something that the judge had said and something that took place. So you don't really need the entire transcript. You just need it just to quote exactly what was said so that you can set the record straight. And so if we have cameras in the courtroom These are records that can be checked by attorneys, by the judge, can easily check this is what happened instead of go try to find a court reporter. And right now there's a shortage. We don't have, back in 2018, when I started litigation, you could order a court reporter the day of, pay for one, and have one in your hearing. Now it's days in advance. And even if you pay the fee, you're not guaranteed one, and you're getting little audio recorders. In a family court case, I had a judge that was using a little audio recorder instead of court reporter, and the judge placed it on top of a Kleenex box. And I do TV production, audio work, so on. I just thought, this isn't very stable to be using a Kleenex box to prop up the recorder. And this is my record. And she's about 10 minutes into the hearing, and the judge says that the recording stops working. And so at that point, I asked the judge if I could record so that I could make sure that there is a record. And she ended up just getting up and going and finding a court reporter. But I believe that only happened because my case has been on the news. I don't think she wanted to be on social media. I don't think she wanted it scrutinized further. But had it been another parent, I think it would have just been, oh, well, let's just hope for the best that these are being recorded. And you can't redo these hearings. You have a one shot. So it's so important. And, sometimes appeals come down to one word. If a jury's instructed to do something, it could come down to one word. Whether you have an appeal or not, whether you can have a whole new jury trial. And so it's important that we have these records. There's been higher level Supreme Court cases where it came down to one word. And so then it ended up being inconclusive that they didn't really know what word was initially used when giving instructions to it.
So just so everybody understands, and we're so used to dealing with all this stuff because we're in it all the time. So people understand what we're talking about, the transcript of the record. So if you've never been in court, there's a court reporter sitting over there typing everything that's being said. And then when you want to go back and get a copy of that, they're going to charge you, and it's going to take a long time generally to get that report. And again, what I'm finding out when you're pro se, the court doesn't want to treat you the same way. These attorneys can ask for something, and man, it happens. But then you ask for something, and you don't get treated in the same way. They kick your stuff out. Now I've got a great court reporter up there at Stillwater on some of the stuff I'm working on, but she still, you know what I'm saying? You can pay a little extra and get bumped up, or, it's going to take a month, or better, it still may take a month getting bumped up. And then you're looking at anywhere from $500, $700 to get that transcript. And guys, like Rosario was saying, it comes down when you're, I'm going from a in-camera hearing like you were talking about. I want it on record. Getting it on record cost me about $700 to get on record, but I want to take that record and go back and say, this is what you said. Here's what the law is. This is what you said. Here's what the law is. But I've got to get those transcripts to show this is what was said. This is what they said. This is what I said. This is what you said, Judge. And again, we're going to be able to show that, but it's a lot of work. And then I know in a case there in Shawnee in Pottawatomie County where they went in and the whole transcript was gone. So they went back in and had another hearing. And guess what happens?
Transcript was gone.
It's gone again. I'll be some buck. It's gone again. Now, what's the chances of that happening? Pretty slim. But again, if you'd had this in-camera hearing, or in-camera, on camera, then guess what? Even if they lost the transcript, you would still have that data showing you could get a good, and if need be, you could get a transcript off of that right there because it's going to be the whole hearing.
Yeah. One of the really important procedures is judge disqualification hearings. It starts with an in-camera hearing, and you can have a court reporter and should have a court reporter.
Yep.
You should not have anything off the record. But the judge disqualification hearings move really fast. You have an in-camera hearing, and you can go, depending on when the judge schedules it, you have the second section of the disqualification, and then it goes to the same judge, and you have basically a hearing, and the same judge decides whether they disqualify themselves or not. If they decide not to disqualify, it goes to a higher judge. But a lot of these steps only have 5 days.
Right.
A lot of times you only have 5 days to do your motion, and then it goes, to the other judge. And then if the higher up judge, your presiding judge, denies it, you have 5 days to appeal to the Supreme Court of Oklahoma. And so whenever you have 5-day increments, you don't get a court reporter that's going to have that ready for you. And if they do, it's going to be a lot of money. I've paid up to over $1,000, $1,400. I know other people that have paid way more. Know a mom that the cost was $9,000 if she wanted to appeal. A dad that the court transcripts was going to be about $10,000. So it's a lot to even be able to appeal. And a lot of the times you don't need the transcript itself. You just need to verify what it said. And so it's costs that can not be some on litigants who are already worn down by the system financially. And so there just needs to be a better way to be able to make sure that we are ensuring due process every step of the way, and not you're filing motions, you're going through the steps, and you don't even have a transcript, or you don't have a transcript to show the presiding judge, or you don't yet have a transcript to show the higher courts, the Oklahoma Supreme Court. And so it'd be great if they gave enough time to be able to wait on those transcripts, but a lot of the times you're not getting that time. You're needing the process to go as it's scheduled.
And
I find it kind of crazy too that they're hearing their own disqualification. When JJ investigates JJ, I get off every time. And if you're hearing your own disqualification, it's unlikely you're going to find yourself, with issues. If they've already turned down a recusal, if you've had a private conversation in their office asking them to recuse, asking them to disqualify themselves, and now we're coming out on record and publicly doing it, it's unlikely they're going to change their positions. You really have to bring your A game to get them to change. I have seen one recently that we won where the person were able to come out with some emails and some other things that really look bad on the judge. The judge would have been way smarter to recuse earlier. But, again, there's reasons, like you say, if you only got 5 days, you're not going to get a transcript. I don't even know you can pay to get a transcript that quickly. You know what I mean? And so
the prices vary based on how quickly you need them. And I've seen emails where they'll have the price. If you need it in this amount of time, it's this much. But if you need it in this amount, and then the price will vary based on how quickly you want that transcript.
Right. To get mine moved up and put it on the top of the pile, it was a couple of $100. It's several $100.
Yeah.
Well, Kentucky has been doing this for 40 years. They have had cameras in the courtroom, and it's now their official record. So 40 years in one state. And I mean, whenever they initially came up with the idea to do cameras in the courtroom, it was a judge that requested it. It was a judge that wanted, better record of these cases. So, we're seeing mass support in other states, as a lot of states have, converted to this.
Well, Teresa, one of the things that, I come at it from a law enforcement stance, because I've been on that side of the, aisle. And you want officers to wear cameras, and they're out there in very disarray, very, what I'm saying, chaotic situations people hollering at you, screaming at you, spitting at you, maybe wanting to fight you, maybe 4 or 5 people out there, 10, 20, as far as that go. And so if you expect that officer to wear a camera, guess what? Things are less chaotic in a courtroom. They're supposed to be pretty organized. So why would you expect that officer to carry a camera and not expect to have a camera in the courtroom? I don't get that.
And you guys have cameras, legislators have cameras. Whenever they have committee meetings, whenever they're voting on the floor, all of that is available so that the people can oversee it. But it seems like the most, the area that you want the most oversight and the most transparency seems to be the most secretive.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that because I'm on camera on the floor all the time, and again, you always got to be looking. You want to be careful what you're looking on your phone because hey, they'll be behind that. I was sick. I've never went to sleep on the floor but one time, and I was sick last year, and I went to sleep on the floor, and they caught me, and I should have really been home. I just went upstairs and got on the couch. Was wiped out. But again, absolutely, I'd forgotten about that. We're on 24/7. If we're on the floor, we're on camera.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This protects the judges, and this protects litigants. This protects DAs. This protects anyone. There was a Channel Music's story that came out, and district attorney in the Rogers County area. He has other districts as well, but Rogers County, Matt Ballard, he's in favor of cameras in the courtroom. There was an attorney on that news article as well in favor of cameras in the courtrooms. We have a lot of people that are very much in favor of it. We do want to debunk a misrepresentation that the court reporters are saying that this would affect victims, that victims already have a very difficult time testifying. Well, the reality is we have a provision that we want to protect victims and children, right? We don't want
existing laws would apply. It's not like this overrides laws that already protect minors, that already protect domestic violence victims, vulnerable adults. All of that is already in statute. So, the misinformation on a lot of these articles and a lot of the things we're hearing at the Capitol is that, this is going to infringe on that, and absolutely not. We still believe in the protection of victims and vulnerable adults, children, all of those things. Those are all put into the statute already.
Yeah, that's already in law. That's already in law. We're not trying to change other laws, and
right.
Yes, we're protecting children's and their identities and all that. So these can be taken out or not used when you have a situation like that, turned off, not allowed in the courtroom when we have those kind of hearings. Easy peasy, not a problem.
Right.
Well, let's talk about you got another bill, which I'm pretty excited about because I've been involved in these grand juries, and I can tell you, it is unbelievable. And I know y'all been involved in grand juries, and it's just unbelievable how you're having to fight the DAs, fight the judges, fight all the court system in order to get what is under the Constitution, and you're guaranteed your First Amendment right says you have the right to associate, get together. You have the right to freedom to file a petition. And yet, man, you got these DAs coming at you, threatening you. You've got these judges using illegal means to kill these grand juries. It is unreal. I got politicians coming in illegally trying to kill it. They're trying to sanction me for even having them. It is insane, but you're up against a 45-day window to get this done. Now, that new initiative petition law gives them 90 days. They're wanting to hold us to the same number as that initiative petition, but they're not wanting to give us the same days. Now, y'all got that bill passed through committee, correct?
Yes, it went through Judiciary Committee not this last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before. That's SB 1581. So that got through Judiciary. It doesn't need to go through another committee because it's not, a bill that requires funding. So it'll go to the floor next. All we did was push from the 45 days to the 90 days. Now, we did also have a Senate joint resolution that Bullard filed as well, SJR 32. And that one deals with fixing the percentages. Now I'm glad you brought this up, because when I was doing the numbers, one of the counties that had the lowest amount of voters was Harmon County. And I know recently they were in the news over the sheriff's department. Several people had stepped down. There was a certain level of corruption. Now, the reason why this is important is that Article 2, Section 18 of the Oklahoma Constitution has a minimum of 500 signatures. So because of a Supreme Court ruling, there was a provision in Article 5, Section 5 that has a formula on there for districts and counties. Well, the Supreme Court ruling applied the statewide 16%. So that 16% is what they're applying to multiple counties. Now, when you have a 500 minimum, counties like Harmon County end up having to collect 78% to be able to get an investigation. So if the people wanted to investigate this sheriff's department that is already under investigation at this point for corruption, they would have to get 78% of the people who voted in the previous governor's election in 45 days of that. So we're hoping, if we don't fix the formula and try to bring it down for all these rural areas, then, maybe the extension would help a little, but it still doesn't fix the overall issue, because 78% is impossible.
Right.
There's
So
no
that
way.
people understand what we're talking about. When we file a petition, you have to get a percentage of the last vote that was taken. It was the last governor's vote, I think.
Yes.
And so again, what they do is go in that county, they look at how many people voted, and you have a minimum. That's what Teresa's saying, an absolute minimum of 500. Well, if you have a county like Harmon, then that 500 is 78%.
Okay.
Guys, you ain't going to go out and collect. One, you're not going to get 78% to agree. You're not going to be able to go out and collect 78%. That's an impossibility. I mean, that's an insane number. So they've got these where they're very, very difficult to get the numbers. And again, under this new initiative petition, they've raised it. It was 8%. And now they're saying, well, it should be 16%. Like there in Payne County, what we should have been able to go with was 1,700. We had that easy peasy. But now they're saying, nope, it's 35. And so we were short of the 35. But what happened there, they didn't actually even do a certified count. The Secretary of Board election actually lied about that and turned it in, and we can prove it. And the court's refusing to take action on us catching that fraud. So it's, again, you're having to fight the court system. You're having to fight the election board. You're having to fight everybody to get these in. And again, that ought to make everybody wonder, why are they fighting like hell to stop these grand juries? So I applaud what you're doing. So that goes to the floor next week, it looks like.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it on the schedule. I'm not sure when it goes to the floor. We've got the joint resolution. That one has to make it through committee this coming week. That one is in Rules Committee right now, so that'd be Senator Daniels. She's the chair of that committee, and that's SJR 32. That is what fixes the number of signatures. It removes the minimum, and it lowers it to 11.4% for counties and districts. The statewide would be 16%. And we kind of looked at previous legislation that Senator Bullard had filed last year, SB 1027. And this was where he changed Oklahoma statute title 34, which is the ballot initiative. That's where it's at in Oklahoma statute. The grand jury in Oklahoma statute is in title 38. So they continue to make changes, even though both were written in the Constitution together, and they're supposed to cross-reference, because they divided them up in Oklahoma statute, one in title 34, one in 38. Then they've made changes to the ballot initiative process without making the changes to the grand jury petition process, even though they're both, start out in Article 2, Section 18 of the Constitution. So we're hoping that the argument made, because Senator Bullard, when he wrote 1027, he said that the signatures couldn't be more than 11.4% in one county. So by those standards, then we feel that in order to get these grand juries, 11.4% for counties and districts just makes more sense.
Absolutely. I mean, why shouldn't it make sense? Why they keep trying to raise it up? And of course, they've got that on appeal. to 16%, which is what killed the Wagner grand jury over there as well when they tried to do that. And quite funny.
When that was Supreme Court ruling, JJ, that was King versus Muskogee County Commissioners, and I believe that was in 24, where they had ruled on the 16%. And because the Supreme Court ruled on that, you're going to have a hard time having other judges rule against the Supreme Court. So we have to fix it constitutionally for us to be able to do it accurately. I mean,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I will tell you this though. I was mad because on the Wagner County, they had Jack Thorpe in there arguing. And my thing was, you're named on the grand jury. How in the crap are you in there arguing your own case? And then he comes out and he tries to get with the AG and go after the people who filed it, which again is illegal and nobody holds them accountable. So I've got a lot of issues with them going after people and them, having their own cases. Supreme Court judge is named in ours and he's ruling on the case. It's like, Judge, by dang, you can't rule on your own case. And he pointed to Judge. Judge, you can't appoint somebody when your name in the case, you have to recuse. So we have a lot of problems right there. We got a lot of problems in our court system, but I 100% agree getting it set in the law and getting the, Senate and the House to, if the, governor will sign off on that. Don't know why the governor wouldn't sign off, but you never can tell with him. It's like wake up in a whole new world every day when you're dealing with that, with our governor, especially right now. He's just been doing some things that I've been head scratching on. Well, hey, there was something else I wanted to talk to y'all about.
The health department, the Senator Rosino's new bill.
Yes, that's what I was wanting to talk to y'all about. Is what do y'all think on? Here I got to preference this. So 6 months ago, him and Jason Dunnigan come out on a TV station talking about that there's a legislator out there kind of making a lot of accusations. They're not true. Everything is great with DHS. This guy's just going around spreading rumors. No evidence, blah, 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 blah. Now, we turn around less than 6 months, I think, and that same senator is filing a bill to say, man, everything's so screwed up at DHS. We've got to get a new agency and we're going to start a new CPS combined with OJA, CPS being Child Protective Services, OJA being Oklahoma Juvenile Affairs. What do y'all think about moving those two together and taking them out of DHS?
I mean, I've heard that DHS is too large, and that's the major issue, is that whenever an agency becomes too large, then it's difficult to regulate it. But who are they going to continue to report to? And that's the question that I want to ask, because they internalize the Office of the Inspector General. So when you're comparing, like you had said, JJ, when you complain about DHS investigates DHS.
Right.
So it doesn't, everything is internalized. If they don't fix the situation where there's an external, department or agency that can oversee the health department or whatever agency they decide to create, we're going to continue to have the same issues. I didn't see that resolved in this language. When I read the language, I mean, you're doing the same thing and expecting different results, is my opinion.
Absolutely. I 1000% agree, because Chico, you were with us when we went to a hearing that we had Appleseed turn in a bunch of information to the agencies, to the AG, to the House Speaker, to the governor, to the pro tem. They did absolutely nothing. I had a hearing as a committee chairman, had to fight them to have the hearing, had that hearing. Your case was involved in that. Several other cases involved. We absolutely proved 100% beyond a shadow of doubt that we had massive, massive problems. DHS fraud, DHS abuse, kids being abused, remaining in the homes, all kinds of things. Kids being abused at the juvenile detention centers, possibly waterboarding at another facility, mental health facility, and they stopped our investigation. So it's the same people in charge. It's the same people you're reporting to, And if they don't create something different, like Teresa was saying, if it's just the same thing, all they did was rename an agency, separate it, rename it, you still got the same players, you still got the same problems. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'll tell you now that I'm back to work with DHS, I get to hear the inside concerns from workers. Now, I won't mention names, but I mean, you have even district directors that are concerned about this bill and how is it going to affect stuff. And the reality is, right now, DHS cannot accommodate the children that are on OJA. We don't have the foster homes that to be able to find housing for those kiddos. And I'm gonna backtrack a little bit just because I need to protect myself. I just want to make it clear that even though I work for the department, I work for DHS, I am not here as a representative of the department. Anytime I speak publicly, it's not me as a representative of the department, but rather an individual, a mother that's been affected by DHS, whose children were failed by DHS. I get to hear the complaints of my coworkers. I get to hear anonymous complaints, people that work with DHS, even administrators who are contacting us and want to remain anonymous. And so, and that's a right. Anytime that you're contacting any sort of news source, and you're wanting to do it anonymous, you have that right. And that news source has the right to not have to ever reveal those sources. But we have a shortage in foster care. And to combine both DHS and OJA, a lot of people are wondering, like, what's the plan? Because right now we have a lot of children that are in OJA that DHS can't service and can't do what it should be able to do for these children. And so there's just a lot of confusion. There's a lot of just lack of trust. Where is this bill coming from? What are the true intents and purposes of it? Because it seems very left field to have it
Right.
come now.
I mean, how does Rosino explain when all these years he's been the one blocking these DHS reform bills? Like a lot of the DHS reform that we've been trying to get through, a lot of the issues that we've had, he's continuously denied that DHS even has any problem. So for him to come out with the bill, and not just that, to combine, OJA whenever, Cartmel came from OJA and now is in DHS, like, I mean, I don't know the guy very well, but it just seems a little fishy to me. Are they going to keep him over both? Or are they just trying to, put somebody completely different in that position? Like, what's the motivation behind it? I don't understand why Rosino feels it.
Absolutely. And what you're saying, I mean, Paul's been, our senator that's running this had just been constantly, I mean, for years, we tried to have a hearing there in Senate and they wouldn't even allow us to have a hearing, on some of this stuff. We finally got to come back, but we couldn't use any of the equipment so we could put it out live and get it out there better. We managed to live stream it. I can't remember if y'all did that or who did it. A couple of them might.
I have it. I have a live stream of that.
Yeah, but the thing about it is we had to live stream it ourselves. We didn't do it through the Capitol that normally, like you said earlier, it films everything. They were like, no, we're not going to let you, not going to allow you. And it's just insane. All the things we've been trying to fight, and we've been accused of being troublemakers. We've been accused of lying. We've been accused of making all these things up, embellishing. And now, oh, it's so bad. We got to start a new agency and we're going to have to do everything. And again, what did we change other than a name? That's the problem. And I will tell y'all this, see what y'all think about this. To me, it looks like, I think the reason they're doing it is because now all of a sudden it's coming out, all the problems, several high profile cases. And, yours being one of them, Chico, is that other people now are starting to fight this. And now they're seeing all the problems. They're getting sued. And I think it's a clean slate to get away from the old system, move over here and go, oh, that's over there. Y'all had to take that up over here. We're in a new system and move on. Now, what do y'all think on that?
Probably almost 3 years ago, summer of 2023, we had our first rally at the Capitol. Teresa was part of that. I was a part of that. We had other individuals that were a part of that. And, there was different topics of reform that we wanted to accomplish. And because, we had 3 to 5, right? Like there needs to be a lot of reform, a lot of things that need to be addressed, like kinship reform, so that children are, it's prioritized that children are placed with their families instead of with strangers in foster homes. And so when it came down to it, we summarized that what we wanted was child well-being reform. And, you can remove a child from a abusive home, but it does not mean that you are providing a child with emotional support, with emotional safety, with mental safety and well-being. And so, it's interesting that that's the reform that we, as a whole, this is what we need to focus on: child well-being. When you remove children from abusive homes, or what you claim to be abusive homes, how are you taking care of those children truly within the system? And so, but now those are the words that are being used by this new child welfare director that was hired, and he's under the previous OJA director. But now we're seeing the words child well-being being used, and that's what the focus should have been a long time ago. And, we don't have to wait for new departments to be made to have those changes happen. But, as much as it's uncomfortable for people to hear what we have to say, people realize that there's a concern. Whenever I'm working within the department, for years I've heard workers complain, who wrote this report? I wouldn't have removed this child, or why wasn't this child removed a long time ago? You hear constant criticism from your own coworkers regarding other coworkers, and there's just a lack of
oversight.
Yeah, and lack of reviewing cases that it should.
There's no accountability. There's no question. I will tell you this. Like I say, we've been working together 3-4 years, whatever it is. When we first started, or at least when I first started, we were looked at more. Oh yeah, troublemaker. Yeah, all that. In the last, I would say 7 to 8 months, what I'm hearing from people is, man, DHS broke. Everybody's just kind of come. I mean, it's just like now in the last 6 months. Well, everybody knows it's broke. Everybody knows that's going on, but nobody wants to fix it. Nobody wants to really roll up their sleeves. And that's all they're doing with this. It's a quick fix, rename it, but they haven't fixed anything. They have not addressed the things that you're talking about: the kinship problems, the judge problems, the guardian ad litem, the family court issues that we know are huge, huge issues. I'm seeing a lot of families, like the grandma or an aunt may have had something. Somebody called DHS 20 years ago on them. It was unfounded, but DHS going, well, you got a call on you 20 years ago, so we're not going to put this kid with you. It's insane what they're saying, the things they're using when they want to use. It's insane where they place kids and then where they refuse to place kids. And again, I see them putting kids in harm's way, sometimes taking them out of homes and putting them in worse homes, and it's just unbelievable to me, some of these foster homes that's not checked out, and the deaths and the things that we're seeing in a lot of those, because like what we say, there's no accountability.
Well, the biggest elephant in the room, I had to bring that up.
I take
Attorney General, we've reached out to him, and he's supposed to be overseeing a lot of this. And whenever he goes publicly and says, I don't see any problems with DHS, and then we have a state auditor that puts out a report saying, hey, we have problems with DHS. Why? I mean, how can you say there's not a problem if you're seeing problems where it matters to the majority of people is where our tax dollars going? I mean, even if you don't care or you don't have children or it's not a priority to you, what they're doing with our tax dollars should be. So why didn't the Attorney General, investigate this further? Why isn't he going into figuring out what he needs to do to fix these issues? Is he's been completely inactive. So I'm hoping that when he is out, we might see some changes then. Otherwise, we need a complete separate agency, a Office of the Inspector General that's not under this agency itself.
And I've ran that bill, Teresa, twice. I think I've ran that bill to set them all out, to have an Office of Inspector General that can go in and investigate any of these, whether it's DOC, same thing. When they investigate themselves, they get off every time. And so whether
and that's the thing is, isn't it the responsibility of the Attorney General? I mean, is that my understanding? Because I feel like that would be his position.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So we have to create a separate agency because Drummond has been inactive. That's how I feel about it.
Our inspector, Cindy Bird, I mean, she said that now the auditor, now it's in the hands of the AG whether to prosecute this missing and misused funds, and he's not doing anything. We did see him post on social media about Minnesota and what happened in Minnesota with the daycares. But the reality is, and that was misused funds of COVID money, agency money from the same type of department here.
Federal funds. Misuse of federal funds.
But you know what? We're seeing massive amounts of private daycares get shut down because of DHS regulation, and we're seeing money being pumped in to the state daycares. So they're closing privates. I mean, like a lot of them, like 500 something, to open, state-run daycares. And again, that should be a big red flag. 100 gone, unaccounted for. And again, how do you unaccount for $100 million? $100 million unaccounted for.
Yeah. The same thing that happened in Minnesota, people want to act all shocked. The same thing that happened in Minnesota happened in Oklahoma. And we only have an audit of 2024. We need to get an audit of 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2025. Because the same thing happened those years. I'm disappointed that we only have an audit of 2024. But, whenever we have an attorney general acting shocked about what happened in Minnesota, he's already known that happened here in his own state, and he's refusing to do anything. There needs to be people that need to be prosecuted. I mean, we had the daycare director that's in charge of all of Oklahoma daycares. Her husband's daycare ended up with over a $2 million grant. And then they want to give her a little slap on the wrist to pay $2,000 as a settlement type agreement. And then there's a lot of daycares that also, they report that they're supposed to be serving X amount of children. And then whenever they go and show up, there's only 12 children when there should be many more children. So, we can play dumb all we want, but Minnesota is not news. This already has happened and been happening in Oklahoma, and we don't have anybody who wants to do anything about it. No one.
No, they want to keep requesting more and more funds, which is funny. We can kind of talk about this because I know you wanted to. Multiple legislators signed a letter for Chico because DHS had terminated her. And I believe you're one of the legislators that signed that. Am I correct? Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's what I thought. And every year they come in and they request more and more funds, and here they are using taxpayer money to fight not one, judge's orders, but two separate orders to reinstate Chico. And instead they chose to continue to appeal it.
Teresa, you're talking about a racket that's going on because what they do, and they got a Office of General Counsel. So they have their own lawyers already. So why do they need to go out and hire $500, $700 an hour lawyers and contract them? And half time they don't even have them contracted. And it's always the same group. If you go around to this Oklahoma City, it's the same group that's tied in, and they appeal it and they appeal it. Because guess what? They're making money just to drag it out, wear you out, cause you problems. And guess what? At the end of the day, they're going to get sued. You know, they're going to get sued, but they don't care because it's not their money. And so
it's our money. It's our money. And more people need to get back.
And when you put this, because it may not sound much like when we're talking about Chico's case, but when you enlarge that, say, all of the DHS cases, all of the DOC cases, all of these other state agencies, it is a money racket that they're playing. And again, they're ruining people's lives. They're causing problems. Now, you won your case, right, Chico? You're back to work?
Yeah, I am back to work. They still are not following the court order. They're supposed to expunge the termination record, and they still haven't. They delivered me and my attorney a letter that said, you were terminated on such and such date. That's supposed to be as if it didn't happen, and they're still doing that. So I still have an attorney that's trying to correct and get them to follow the court order. Now we've had to go back to court and file so that the court enforces that. And then my attorney filed for attorney's fees. And DHS tried to use a federal case of mine, which my attorney thought was highly inappropriate. I'm still getting personal attacks within the litigation. The DHS attorney just so out of line. I'm going to go ahead and say it, unprofessional, and has been dishonest throughout the process. And it's going to cost DHS more money, and it continues to cost more money. But it's like, who's over this attorney that's handling the case, who's handling it very unprofessionally? And it's just going to cost more money, more lawsuits. Now my attorney's trying to gather more evidence and documents so that I can file a separate lawsuit. And so instead of them doing the right thing, they still employ people who are still doing personal attacks, like this attorney. You know, they had a meeting with me, and it was supposed to be a welcome. We're so happy you're back. You know, it's as if nothing happened, but then you still have your DHS attorney doing personal attacks within the litigation system. And it's like, it doesn't feel like a welcome at all. It just feels like you are going to try to see any little thing to fire me, or you're going to make it up, which is
Absolutely.
They already tried to change a testimony of one of the witnesses, and that's the evidence that we're trying to obtain, but we know it happened.
Well, and just so everybody knows, you were targeted because of a whole lot of your activity and being an advocate and things like that already. But you went to a rally, you took off the day, you weren't working, and you used your personal time to go to a rally. I was at that rally. And again, right after that rally is when you were fired for that. And you've been fighting that for what, 3-4 months now?
Well, now it's like 5 months, but I was off that day of the rally, but I got terminated the day right after the rally. Right. And then they went back and said that because I appeared on a radio show during my FMLA time. Now, FMLA is extremely protected, so protected. They cannot tell you what to do with your time whenever you are off on FMLA, because whatever you're out there doing doesn't mimic your work, no matter what, really. Right. And so unless there's specific policy in place, which we still, argue that there isn't. There was policy that if you're out there doing something more physically strenuous in your job. And so I went to a radio show. It was 1 hour, and, it wasn't more physically strenuous than my job, but I had already taken off. Teresa was going to go to that radio show, but since she has almost 3-hour trip and I was already off, I went ahead and I went.
I'd blame it on Teresa anyways. I always try to blame Teresa.
I'll take it. I'm not
Yeah.
scared. DHS can fire me.
Yeah. She felt bad. At first, she felt terrible. And then,
Well, I mean, I still made jokes. I was.
yeah, and then, you know how she is. She jokes around. And then after I spent, you know, time at home, not working, and I did get back pay. And Teresa was like, I don't feel so bad anymore.
Right.
You know, she gave me.
Right.
Well,
Hey,
because I told her, I
before-
was like, Chico, I gotta go. Some of us have to work in the morning. And she's like, you're a jerk. It was like the day she'd been fired.
Well, one of the things that I know y'all got to get as many calls. I'm not over exaggerating when I say between DHS and DOC, I probably get, I'm going to guess close to 100 a day. Emails, text, messages, that kind of thing on people asking me to help with their case, and they're just
Mhm.
desperate. And I know y'all get all of those kind of calls probably as much as I do. I would suspect. Am I
lot.
right on that?
It's hard because there's nothing I can do. Like people want to give me their cases, or they want me to share their cases, and you know me, JJ. Like I'm not really involved on the judicial side. Everything that I do is typically looking at the statute and trying to figure out how we can fix it legislatively. So I try not to get as much information about cases, because if you don't help people, sometimes they blame you for not being able to help. And,
Oh, yeah.
really it's out of my hands. Like I have absolutely no ability to individually help anybody's personal case. And that's a very hopeless feeling when you see so many people that want your help, that want you to do something for them, that believe that you're going to be the difference in their case. And it's disheartening to have to tell them, like, I'm not an attorney. I really I can't advise you. I can't help you. Like, if you know a certain law that you think needs to be changed that would help your case, that's about all I can do. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh, I'm overwhelmed. And when I first started, before I first met you guys, I was one that was very doubtful. I knew cases. I'd had a personal experience in my life, some things, so I knew stuff could happen. Mine was with DOC and working for them, a work related deal, and so I knew that how things could happen. But I still thought the system was good. You know what I'm saying? I always erred on the side, oh, hey, we might have one case drop through the cracks. Now I'm totally opposite. Now I believe the case, and I make DHS prove they're you know what I'm saying? It's like
Mhm.
I'm looking for the truth, but I just know how DHS has messed up and seen it over and over again. But it is so frustrating, and it's just, when you can't help and you want to help, you're trying to answer, and we're trying to do grand juries. We're trying to bring all this. We've had DAs asking for the AG to bring. We've had legislators asking. We've went out. We've done lawsuits. We've done committee hearings. I mean, we're doing all we can, but it's just, man, there's so many out there that it's just overwhelming. And I did want to say a big shout out to y'all's page. You're doing awesome, great work. That's page 6. So if you want to look at, y'all can just, look them up on page 6. Is that Oklahoma page 6? How's that?
Page 6, Oklahoma.
Page 6, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. And y'all have all kinds of stories all the time on there about the court system, about DHS fraud or DHS problems. But y'all do prison problems, all kinds of stuff. Anything that's going on in Oklahoma that is an injustice to say, you're usually right on top of that, reporting that and putting things out there.
Hey, and big shout out to our team, because if it was just me and Chico, there's no way we could juggle the amount of things that we juggle. But this is the first year that we've had like a very, very solid, hardworking team that has, worked consistently to try to put out information, try to gain support, just try to keep the public informed about multiple issues, because a lot of these stations, they're not reporting on everybody's individual cases, and people sometimes that they get an advantage if their story gets out there, because once it becomes public information, they're a little more likely to take on the case or investigate it or look further into it. And that's kind of what's happening in our state, is people are not getting the traction that they were getting before. So it's been really, really helpful. And I can't thank our team enough, because they've been amazing. Like, they've helped.
Y'all's doing a great job. There's a couple of others out there that are getting some notice or getting some, headway. But on some of those, I don't. And again, everybody's got their own way. Everybody's got their own tactic. But I kind of hold to y'all's tactic, to where you report factually, you get the information, how and again, you don't necessarily say this is, you say the allegations were, or here's this is a fact, or this is and again, it's not really a personal,
No.
it's not aimed at it's just, here it is, factual. And if it hurts somebody, again, if the truth hurts you, then maybe you need to be hurt. And there's a lot of these judges and a lot of these district attorneys and some legislators and some agencies that need hurt. I mean, they're doing wrong and they're harming people, and they need to be called out on it. But the way you do it is not personal. It's not, it's very professional. And so I really like y'all's page, follow it all the time. And again, that's where I get a lot of information off of. And so I really enjoy having that out there.
Thank you, JJ.
You bet. Hey, we've run out of time. I sure appreciate both of y'all coming on today. Appreciate you taking a Sunday afternoon. Guys, we've covered a lot, but cameras in the courtroom, we got to have them. We need this bill to go through. The grand jury.
Appropriations Committee in the Senate. That's what we need.
Yep. You need to talk to your senators. And then when it gets to the House, talk to the House. The 90 days, increasing that for grand jury, changing those numbers like we talked about. So there's 3 bills there. Watch that bill changing the Department of Human Services. Again, if we change it, but we don't fix the problem, it's worthless. It's just a move to get the heat off of them. That's all it is. They need to fix the problem. So y'all want to say anything before we leave?
I think we've said a lot. We just really appreciate the time and you, continuing to fight for people, and just, we're not going to stop, but we also need people to help us fight and be that voice, if you can be that voice. But even if you can't, send emails, do phone calls, whatever you can do in the background. It helps a lot.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate both of you. Y'all have a good day.